Okay, great. So this was the verbiage that you read that convinced you to come on board. So I'm glad you're here. And we're going to talk about what I learned from my flight. Uh, Give me 1 second, because maybe on my phone I can watch the chat. Okay. All right, so maybe I can see the chat on my iPhone over here on the side while I do this on my computer screen. So I'll try to monitor that in case there's any issues that I need to pause for. Okay, thanks for your patience while we get this technology figured out. So, um, yeah, so think about this. You know, you got the regs, which basically say before engaging in any cross-country flight, or somehow I think it's worded, any flight not in the vicinity of the departure airport, you got to do a bunch of stuff. Get all available information: runway lengths, performance, weather, uh, anything like that, and it kind of goes on for a while. And then, of course, you learned about how to plan for fuel, and you know the minimum required fuel when flying cross country, which if you um, abide by strictly and you let yourself get down to 30 minutes during the day VFR, good luck. I never fly with less than an hour, and I had a friend years ago who used to say he won't even fly on the bottom half of the fuel tank, which is interesting. So anyway, with my little T-18, if I did that, I wouldn't be able to get very far, but it's only a 29-gallon tank, and it's a 180 horsepower monster. So anyway, we'll get to that. So considerations. So just kind of my broad thinking about flying cross country. Number one, always leave yourself an out. Always, always, always. If the weather doesn't go as planned, if the airplane's acting funny, if you don't feel right, anything like that, you need to have a way to get down, preferably at an airport. If not, if the, engine trouble or something like that, as maximize as best you can um, the opportunity to sit down somewhere where you can walk away. It's not on my slide, but my philosophy along those lines is the airplane is expendable. The airplane is expendable. You are not. And sometimes they're off airport landing opportunities where like, oh my God, if I do that, if I go a little bit farther and I make that field, then I can save the airplane. The airplane is irrelevant. Irrelevant. There are other airplanes. There's only one you. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Always leave yourself an out. Along those lines, eliminate or at least minimize as best you can the times that you have no options if the engine quits. I don't know how to eliminate it. There are always a few seconds in any flight, typically right after takeoff, that if you lose power, you have extremely limited options. And some of you have seen on the Flights Above Facebook page a chatter about my partial engine failure over Pearson, Vancouver, Washington last year, and I'll turn that into a webinar soon. Lost most of my power at 300 feet over a city with nowhere to go. That was interesting. Needless to say, we made it back, so that we'll save that for a future webinar. But minimize it as best you can. And once you're away from the airport and before you get down low for landing, I'm going to venture to say you should be able to eliminate entirely the times that you just have junk under you where you can't possibly put it down and walk away. So that's something to keep in mind. Always have an out. Make rescue as easy as possible. So if you do have to land in off airport and a survivable landing, hopefully, make it as easy as possible for the rescuers not only to find you, but to actually physically get to you, extract you from the wreckage if necessary, give you the attention that you need, obviously you and your passengers. And absolutely do not take anyone with you who wasn't wasn't in the airplane. Don't land in a schoolyard where there's kids. Don't endanger people on the ground. They didn't sign up for the risk associated with flying, small as it is, but you did, and your passengers did. So make rescue as easy as possible. Land on a road, maybe land next to a road if there's availability to do that. That way, they can drive to you and just have to hoof over, as close as possible. You don't want to be 3 miles away from the nearest road, so that the only place to get you is a helicopter, if possible. And then those of you that have done these long flights, 500, 1,000 or more miles, I'm going to go and end the poll just because it taking up a bunch of my screen. Thank you for doing that. Let me do this. I think it'll save it, and I think share results. There you go. Okay, so I'll let you take a peek at that, and then after a minute or two, I'll make it disappear. But there are plenty of periods of time when you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just droning, and it's just, and you're cranking along at 4,500, 5,500 feet. Everything's working great. You've got this amazing machine you're in. The air is smooth. You look outside, and if you're over the Great Plains states, you're looking outside hoping to find something interesting to look at, and there may not be much. So how do you keep your mind busy? How do you stay on track mentally? Because you're going to need it sometime. So how do you keep your mind busy? So with some of those things in mind, or all of those things in mind, I should say, the overall plan. How do you even begin? You normally you have a origin and a destination, hundreds or thousands of miles apart. Like, where do you even start? So I was buying this airplane down south of Houston, which is just about as far away as you could get in Texas. Texas is a big state, my goodness. It took a day to get out of Texas, and then only a day and a half to get the rest of the way to Oregon. But how do you begin? You've got this huge line on your chart. Typically we're using electronic stuff now, so I happen to use ForeFlight. That's not an endorsement for or against anything, since this is an FAA Wings webinar. I think I have to put that in there. It's just what I happen to use, what I'm familiar with. So we'll get into that in a bit. But how do you begin? And obviously you have terrain, you may have weather considerations, SUA, special use airspace, restricted areas and such that you may need to deal with. How about thinking about airports along the way? Where are you going to stop for fuel, other services? What if you need mechanical help? Several airplanes ago, I bought a RV4 in Florida and was flying it home, and every single day I had one or more issues. That says nothing about the design, or the van's designs are gorgeous airplanes. It has to do with some sloppy building that the builder did. This is not a disparagement at all about the RV4. Amazing airplane, but I needed needed exhaust work. At one point, one of the magnetos came loose and blew oil all over the place. Anyway, so yeah, think about having a good choice of airports with services along the way, and of course fuel. And now with our electronic stuff, we can get fuel prices along the way, which really helps. I noticed during my flight that two airports near, I don't know which city, very close to each other. One had $5 fuel, one had $7 fuel. Guess which one I chose? Okay, emergency landing opportunities along the way, as we discussed, and I'm sure there are other considerations as well. So once you pick an initial direction, so in my case, leaving Ellington, Texas, which is down past Houston, you'll see that on when I go to ForeFlight. How do you get out of there? I'm on the far side of this gigantic mass of Bravo airspace, and I need to get myself out of there somehow and go, start heading north or west or northwest. And You'll see that in a bit. So even just the start of some flights takes some noodling. So obviously time, distance, and fuel between fuel stops. That's not just about aircraft performance, that's about pilot performance. How long does your bladder last? How long does your back last, cramped up in a small airplane? Um, and then what altitudes you're going to fly? What altitudes will you need to fly based on the terrain? Will you need oxygen? What are the oxygen altitudes? Choosing your altitudes based on the hemispheric altitude rule. If your VFR, uh, odd plus 500 or even plus 500, depending on whether you're east or west bound, respectively. If you're IFR, the same thing minus the 500s. But choosing those based on aircraft performance, again, oxygen, weather, cloud coverage, and so on, winds aloft. So how about staying fed and hydrated, but not too hydrated, because then you need an unplanned relief stop, possibly. And trust me when I say it is a very, very uncomfortable feeling when you need relief and you're 45 minutes from any place worth landing at, and that's difficult. So you want to stay hydrated, but not too hydrated unless you have a relief mechanism on board. We'll leave it at that. And so what I said below there, planning for what if you do get too hydrated. So it's an interesting balance there. You do not want to get dehydrated to the point that you get a headache or your mind gets foggy. And so that also may limit your airport to airport distances. So anyway, go back to the poll. Looks like voting has pretty much slowed down to a stop. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. But thank you for voting. Looks like we got a pretty good mix. So thank you for that. Let's see if I do that and then I do that, then I have my full screen. Okay, good. All right. Yes, go ahead. Next slide. There we go. All right. So allowing time for rest and recovery. I'd love to think that I was half my age. I'm a mere 66. But when I did for example, the Florida to Oregon flight, that was 25 years ago, maybe 30. I didn't need as much time between flights. I could go and fuel and, grab a bite to eat, use the restroom, get back in the airplane. Now I might be able to do that once, but by the time I make the next fuel stop in a day, I need to just kind of put my feet up for a while and have to allow time for that. Dealing with weather and weather updates en route, and I should have added NOTAMs, and in particular TFRs, temporary flight restrictions. This trip that I made was in August of last year. I had no weather issues. I was very, very lucky. That's almost true. Getting out of Ellington was a mess because just Houston is so humid. So there can be low to mid-level clouds that squash you down, and the visibility isn't great. But once I get out of that metropolitan area, I was lucky the whole way, and even the winds aloft were mild at all altitudes. But summer, what do we get in summer? We've got long, hot, and possibly hotter than they used to be summers, and that leads to a lot of wildfires. And when there are wildfires, there are TFRs, and they can come and go pretty quick. You need to know the lateral limits, you need to know the vertical limits, so you can go around them or above them. So we got to keep that in mind. Flight plans. Are you going to file a flight plan for every leg? If so, are you going to remember to close it? So I was doing that, and I ended up at one of my stops. And when I was getting ready to leave, the person behind the desk said, "You might want to call flight service. They were looking for you by phone, and they called us up." And I said, "Yeah, I can see that tail number out there, and they are pretty angry that you didn't close." I'm like, "Oh no." So what happened is I had launched the flight plan via ForeFlight. Of course, did the weather check and filed the flight plan, and then activated the flight plan via ForeFlight. And ForeFlight was new to me. I had used it years ago, but it had been quite a while, and the flight plan activating and closing was new to me, and so I thought I had pushed the right buttons to close the flight plan at the destination, but apparently not. So anyway, remember to close your flight plans, whether you do it by electronic means or over the radio to flight service, or if you forget all of the above, then do it via phone call. Any way you can, please remember to close your flight plans. What about flight following? How's your comm radio? Obviously, how's your transponder and everything else? Is everything working so that you can use flight following? If you're using flight following, do you need a flight plan? Do you want both? It's certainly not a bad idea. One of the main reasons to file and activate flight plans, of course, is if you don't close. Any reason I did not file IFR? I'll get to that. Thank you for the question. If you don't, reason for filing a flight plan is that if you don't close, they'll look for you. And if they can't find you by phone calls, hey, did he land? You know, is this aircraft here? Is this aircraft there? And then they start getting serious. But hours and hours later, maybe not till the next day or days later, they're going to try to backtrack the route that you flight planned. So you get the idea? It takes time. If you're on flight following and you disappear, they know exactly where you are within a very, very tight radius. So things to consider there. Didn't file a flight plan because I'm very rusty on instruments. I made sure I was current so that I could file, but the aircraft isn't really equipped for it. And I didn't want to be caught having to copy and deal with clearances and follow all that with nav equipment I wasn't familiar with. So I chose to go VFR the whole time. But thank you for that question. Now, flight following will keep you busy and attention. That's true. And that's generally good because they're your two main purposes of flight following is to call out traffic that you don't see or ADSB doesn't catch or something like that. And then the other is if you disappear, they know where you disappeared. But you know, keep it low and in the background and just listen for your call sign. But what should I wear? This interestingly came up just yesterday in the General Aviation Safety Facebook page, where someone said, you know, I'm just getting started on cross country. Is like, what do you wear? And this is not a fashion statement, of course. So I'm going to stop share for a moment. And okay, hi again. And it's a really good question because, for example, don't wear sandals. May be very comfortable. It depends, you know, if your rudder pedals or, you know, if it's a Cessna, you could probably get away with sandals. In my plane, it's a hot little tail dragger, and I need really, really instantaneous and tight rudder control, and I have to worry about a sandal flipping around on my foot. So it's impractical in that sense. But what if you go down somewhere, a survivable accident, and you get out, now you're in rough terrain. What do you want on your feet? And someone else had commented to that person's question on Facebook and said that his or her instructor said, wear what you would wear if you thought you had to walk home from wherever you're going to sit down, because you may have to do some, obviously not home, but you may have to do some walking. Normally when I travel, I have a couple of just windbreaker, like in the summer, of course, windbreaker jackets that I would bring. They just happen to be black. I just think that's just what I use. That's the look I like. Actually, one of them was a pretty cool Twin Oaks Air Park jacket, but it's black. So if I go down and people are looking for me, do I want to be wrapped in black trying to stay warm, or something else? So darn it, I didn't bring it from my closet, but I happen to have a bright red like AOPA jacket that's bright red. And that's what I brought. So that's what I wore for a windbreaker at night, and that's what I had in the airplane. So if I needed to be found, red shows up better than most other colors. Um, so, gosh, given the choice of if it's moderate weather, I'll wear long pants because I'm less likely to get hurt if I get banged up and scratched and things like that. It'll protect my legs. But this was hot, hot summer, and you got to balance that with being comfortable. So, and especially leaving 95 Houston, 95 degrees, 95% humidity. Oh man. So I was actually in shorts the whole time. But I'm just saying that these are the kinds of things you need to think about when you think about what you're going to wear. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. So what should I wear? Other provisions. All right. So charging devices, accessories, meds, and so on. So I take medications, so I need to be able to have these packed up whenever I travel anywhere, and make sure I'm on time with those. So even with all this cross country, got to get here, got to get there, not gotta, want to get here and want to get home. Still have to keep track of physiological needs, which in my case includes medications. Even something as simple as having a painkiller. This happens to be acetaminophen, which is Tylenol equivalent. You do not want a headache when you're doing activities like this. So just have something like that available if that works for you. I talked about food and hydration, so I always have one or more water bottles with me. And food, I happened to find a box of these at Costco, which is just kind of mini, whoops, that one, mini Cliff Bars. And I went through a lot of these because I'd be hour and a half into a flight and going, oh, I'm feeling a little low blood sugar, and I just pop one of those. And so in addition to that, food that I bought at the various locations. And now, a million charging devices, keeping all this stuff charged. Have all your cables with you. I sometimes I like to be special. Sometimes I'd rather be normal. I'd rather have normal hearing like I used to. But a couple of years ago, I had a stroke, and therefore I wear this cute little thing, which is a cochlear implant. And that's the only way I can hear on the left side. So that's a kind comment, Kurt. Thank you. So I have extra stuff. I have a little thing called a mini mic, which takes the audio from the audio panel and transmits it to a different version of cochlear. I'm showing you this for a reason. So for cochlear implant, which looks like this. Oops. And so this sits outside the headset anyway, more than you need to know about that. But the point is, this runs on batteries, not rechargeable. So I have to remember to bring batteries with me. This one I'm wearing now that I use when I'm not in the cockpit is rechargeable. So I'd be sure to bring a rechargeable battery along with the charger. And then obviously the correct cable so I can charge it. I mean, think about these logistics. You have stuff too you need to charge. One of them I forgot to bring with me is your, well, I didn't, here. One of them is your cell phone. So you need the charging devices for that. You need, if you're using a tablet, iPad, anything like that, you got to have all this stuff, right? Don't count on the hotels to have, for example, the thing where you can stick in the USB. Bring one of these. Oh my goodness. And I even brought this thing, which is a splitter, USB splitter. So all I needed was the big brick, because this has lots of amps compared to the little tiny thing. I plug this into this, and then I have 3 places that I can plug in my USB things. They don't talk about this in the regs, do they? All right, so, all right, let me go back to share screen. And where are you at here? Cross country. Okay. Whew. All these things to think about, to pack with you, and then figure out how to organize the cockpit so that the things you need in flight are within easy arm's reach, not where you have to twist all over yourself to get to the back seat or something like that. or even worse in the baggage compartment. And then, yeah, so keeping all that in mind and doing careful planning around that. Come on, computer. What did I just do? Hold on. Come on. Yes, you. Do something intelligent. What are we doing? Oh, good. I got to freeze. Okay, other provisions. There we go. All right. So just, wow, that was all background. And I'm going to fly through just these two suggestions, and then we'll get to screen sharing has stopped. Why did that happen? Oh, my God. Okay, let's babysit the computer for a second. Give me, as long as it takes to relaunch the PowerPoint. All right, go ahead and type questions if you got them or comments while I'm waiting for Mr. Computer to come back to life here. Why are you not launching the PowerPoint? Oh, I got to look at the all panelists and attendees. There may be comments I haven't been seeing yet. All right, we're getting there. Oh, yeah, that one. Come on. You can do it. All right, FAA wings is one of the things I was going to talk about. And wow. Whoops, that there. Will this just go straight to full screen mode? Nope. Yep. All right, now I got to go back to share screen. Oh man, thanks for hanging in there, guys. I'm sorry about this. Jumping around. Where are we? Give me Zoom. Share screen. The that screen. And now go to launch the stupid thing. What's your problem? Slideshow. Resume slideshow. Why won't you do this? Computers are the work of the devil. All right, while we're at it, the stuff that you have in the airplane, guess what? It could fail. My primary nav device was the iPad, which of course has its own GPS and also eats data from the Skyfix, I think it's called, which is the ADSB receiver. Okay. iPads can fail. Actually, it did overheat a number of times, but only when I was on the ground and I had it sitting in the sun while I was fueling or using the facilities. And I had to take it out of the airplane, bring it into the air-conditioned facility with me. And, oh, this is ridiculous. And deal with that. Goodness gracious, this is not going where I want. So you need to think about how you're going to navigate. Wow. Yay, I think I'm back where I want to be. If things fail. Also, GPS, you may have, GPS itself goes out once in a while, doesn't it? They do, screen sharing is paused. What is your goddamn problem? Oh, I'm so sorry about this. Share screen. That one. All right, someone please chat me now. Are you seeing the screen that says honorable mentions? Yes, thank you. Okay, got that. Goodness. Where was I? GPS goes out because sometimes the government does jamming on purpose, or they shut it down for maintenance or something like that. So you just need to be ahead of yourself. Like, what if this thing goes down? How am I going to at least proceed to the next stop? Oh, great. Now it's not going to move forward. Wow. All right. We finally get to the slide where I tell you a little bit about me. Cheaper. Wow. I'm a recovering engineer. You think I'd be better at this technology, but can I blame the computer or my internet? All right. So that's me. And I'm on my 10th airplane, more or less from top to bottom. So notice it's my third T-18. I love the design. There's that RV-4 in there. I think that was my fourth airplane. Um, and that's my beauty. Some of you have seen this online. Tiny little cockpit. Once it's safe to be in close quarters again, anyone's welcome to a ride as long as you fit with me in there. It's a small little cockpit. And you can see my camera feed on the slide. Thank you. No, do I still have the Eagle? No, the only thing I have is this airplane now. Thank goodness. One is enough. But so there's the panel. I didn't have time to get a close-up panel shot. Have I thought about building? Yeah, I'm not a builder. I would never dream of flying anything I built. I just let other people build it, and I just want to fly it. So, but anyway, here's the panel. So it's just a NavCom, which means COM and VOR, and the VOR is very insensitive. It needs some help. And then below that, there's a Node C transponder, and elsewhere is the ADSB stuff. But that's it for nav. The only other thing, all the way on the right, you can kind of see where a USB thing is plugged in, and that's where the iPad goes. And that, with ForeFlight, is my nav. Over on the left, it's black and hard to see, but there's a G5, the amazing Garmin Do Everything little gizmo, which is a dream. Just below that, looks like a turn coordinator. That's a TrueTrack autopilot. Excuse me. And then above and to the right of that, altimeter, below that, airspeed, and an engine monitor. So it's a very basic panel. Someone asked earlier why I didn't file. I mean, just look how basic the panel is. It's really not suitable at this point, not without God knows how much money on a new NavCom WAS system to make it IFR. Okay, that's all that. So wings. Oh, good. Thank you. Took a screenshot. So just real quick on wings, I just want you to know that it's a great system. And I want you to go to FAA Wings and do the learn more here, because I don't want to take time to detail it. Except to say that on the left side, if you're a pilot and you complete any phase of wings, that counts as a flight review. You literally never need to have another flight review the rest of your life. So just keep that in mind. And if you're a flight instructor, over here on the right side, if you do the right thing, you never have to take another FERC, Flight Instructor Refresher Clinic. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And now if this thing will go forward. Come on. There it is. Man. Okay, so there I completed a phase of wings, and it says my, anyway, somewhere in there it says that here it is, flight review is now good for 24 calendar months since completing the wings program. So I just wanted to show that. ASRS, if this was a live seminar, I'd ask you to raise your hands. How many have ever filed a report to ASRS? I've done many. Even if you don't, please notice where it says subscribe to callback. Highly, highly recommend it. It's a monthly newsletter, very interesting reading. They do it kind of in an entertaining fashion, and I hope you'll take a look. Here's what that monthly newsletter looks like. It's just 2 pages, and there's one from 2017, so I'd just like to throw that in there. Okay, finally, dang, let's get to the flight. We have 20 minutes left. So here's the overall route. Excuse me. Grab some water here. Way down there at Ellington, excuse me, down past Houston, and all the way up there to 7 Sierra 3, which is Twin Oaks, near Hillsboro, near Portland, Oregon. I think it's a little over 1,600 nautical miles straight line, or great circle, or whatever that is. And I want you to stare at this for a minute, especially if you haven't yet done these, super long cross countries. and think about what your routing might be. And you're just in a general aviation airplane. If you don't know the T-18, think of it as an RV-6. If you don't know that, think of it. I mean, even just make it a Cessna 182. That's reasonably comparable in terms of the decisions that would be made about the routing. So normally aspirated, not turbocharged, no oxygen on board. And what are you going to do if you literally fly this route? You got those monster mountains in the middle of the country, a whole bunch more that get a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller. But there's just a lot of high terrain, and generally in country like that, their airports are pretty well spaced out, so you have fewer options along the way. So I posted on Facebook several days before the planned trip and got a lot of wonderful comments from the Flights Above folks, Fat PMW, Flights Above the Pacific Northwest. Excellent group. Thank you, Bryce, and admittance. So one suggested route was something like this. Still a lot of high terrain, but you can kind of minimize it. Obviously, the first part up to BDU, Boulder, Colorado, is pretty darn flat. And then you got a little bit of stuff to go through. We could even bump up north of that if you wanted to. And then moderate kind of over to ForeFlight, so we can sort of do this live. Give me 1 second, because it says there's a Q&A, and I don't know how to get to it, except click on it. Here we go. How do I join to get credit? How do I get Regs credit if we join Zoom? I will take care of that. Zoom gives me a roster of who attended and how long, and FAA, you need to be on pretty much the whole time, so it'll tell me how long you were on. So, but anyway, if you've been on long enough that I think you got a lot out of it, I hope, then I go over to FAA safety and approve your attendance or something like that, and I'll get that all done. Thank you for asking. Okay, give me 1 second here to get rid of that and go over to screen share. ForeFlight, yay! All right, that worked. Okay, so there's that big route. And what I ended up doing, if I go over here to flights, yep, someone else gave me another suggestion, El Paso to Chandler and so on. So all good suggestions. Now what are you doing? Oh, see what I mean about technology having its own way? This happens in airplanes too. So I'm just always suggesting, what are you going to do if, what are you going to do if, what are you going to do if? All right, we should be back on ForeFlight and the overall route. And I actually, you know what part of the problem is, because everybody's staying at home. I think there's a lot of streaming going on, either that or there's like a zillion people watching this webinar. But I've noticed my Comcast is just dragging many times, and maybe you've seen that too. All right, so let me go over to flights. Okay, and let's see, that right there, 1, 2, 3, that is, if I send this to the map, the route I ended up with, airport to airport, is that right there. Oh, basically the southern route. So sort of northwest and then across the mountains, which I'll talk about, and on up that way. So there's kind of the northern route that I showed earlier. There's a southern route, and then you could actually sneak up the middle too. Like just imagine Albuquerque, Salt Lake City. Yep, right there. Anyway, Boise, something like that. So this is what I did, and I just wanted the easiest I could get away with for as long as possible with this new aircraft. Yes, it's my third T-18, but the second one was, gosh, 15 years ago. even if it was only last year, it's a new airplane to me. It's a complete, all different avionics. Uh, I checked it out pretty well, and I'm happy with the condition. In fact, I'm in love with the thing. But it takes a while to get used to it. After 15 hours en route, I feel, and a bunch more flying since I've been home, I feel real good about it. But I wanted as easy as possible, as long as possible. And if you watch where I went, EFD is Ellington, T82 is Fredericksburg, Texas, which I highly recommend if you ever need a pit stop in that area. The Hangar Hotel is a very cool place to spend the night. Odessa, Texas, just for fuel. So back here at Tango 82, this was an overnight. I only did one leg the first day because I had taken literally the red eye to get to Houston. Spent all morning, of course, looking over the airplane and having lunch with the guy and concluding the deal. And it's like, I only have brain left for one flight. And I got over here to Fredericksburg probably, 4 in the afternoon. Remember, this is August. It's light till 9. I don't care. I'm done. Get me some pizza and give me a bed. Remember I talked about rest and recovery. That was very important. I didn't dare fly any farther. I was just happy to be out of the Houston basin and away from all that humidity. And basically 200 miles closer to home. So day 2 was Odessa, Texas. Believe it or not, Truth or Consequences. I just forget which state that's in. New Mexico. Next, this is all on one day. Show Low, Arizona. Man, this is slow. I have a feeling running this while Zoom and 50 or 60 people on, it's just, yeah. So Show Low, Arizona, and then over here I spent the night at it's near Bullhead City, Arizona. This is actually Sun Valley Airport, just south of Bullhead City International, believe it or not. And spent the night there. Then the next day, all the way home. So 7-4 Papa was a fuel stop. Calvada Meadows, Pahrump, Nevada, or Pahrump. I'm not sure how to say that. Pahrump. Short hop because of fuel stop, because I got some mountains here. If you look just before KBIH, there's a pretty good ridge there. I didn't want to make that all in one trip, so I just broke it up with that Pahrump fuel stop. Got up here to BIH, Bishop, California. Fueled again because now I've got real mountains to get over, which we'll talk about. And on over this. Almost none of these were straight lines like drawn. I'm just showing you. I went from here to there. The actual routing kind of wiggled depending on terrain and TFRs and stuff. So from Bishop up here to Oroville, California. And now I'm in much more familiar terrain. I used to live in the Bay Area. I've been up and down that from Portland to Bay Area many times. 046 is Weed, California. Very cute little place to stop. And you're right under Mount Shasta. It's actually gorgeous scenery right there. And then the longest leg up there to Twin Oaks. By now I know the airplane and the fuel burn and everything else, and I'm going home. So that was the overall view of the route. Well, let me stick with that for a moment because we're going to run out of time soon, and I have another webinar at 10:30 I got to prepare for. You're welcome to come to that. That's Ask a CFI. But let me drill in here to Ellington. Remember I said, how do you even get out of your initial departure point when you're buried under Bravo? Look at that maze of Bravo airspace. You have two major airports just a few miles apart, so it's kind of a double Bravo whammy. And I'm over here under the shelf. At this point, it's only a 2,000-foot shelf. And and I need to go west or west northwest. Let's see, what is that heading? Whatever that Victor Airway is. Anyway, that direction. So think about that and what you know about Bravo airspace, um, and think about what you want to do. And remember, you're in unfamiliar territory, a brand new to you airplane, um, and this massive bunch of airspace here that I really wanted to pay attention to the airplane and not have to be back and forth with controllers if I could avoid it. So one option is to do exactly as drawn, meaning coordinate with Ellington Tower and just say, I'm westbound to Fredericksburg. Could you, after departure, please hand me off to Houston approach for a Bravo transition? That would have worked. But again, I didn't want all those distractions and changing frequencies and having to chatter back and forth with controller. I could have gone a bit north. Let me rubber band it. I hope I think you can probably see this. I could have gone and found some point up here, staying under this 2,000-foot shelf. Who cares, anything, that point there. And then gone west. But think about this compared to what I said early on, which is to maximize the emergency landing opportunities. And here you are over this gigantic metropolitan area. Where on earth am I going to sit down if this engine falters? So if I go north-ish and then west like that, I have nowhere to go. Maybe I'll find a freeway, plop on top of some cars. I don't know, but that just scared me to heck. Plus, think about airspace like this and other VFR traffic. Where's the other VFR traffic going to be that does do this east-west stuff? So I'm stuck under 2,000 feet. I'm stuck at low altitude over buildings with nowhere to go and probably other traffic going randomly in different directions. And we're all at the same place at the same time. I did not want to do that. So the only thing I could think of eventually was coming down here to the south. And I kind of wrapped around something somewhat like this. I wanted to make sure I stayed out of Bravo. I'm still at 2,000, and then there's this little, anything, doesn't matter, 3,000-foot chunk. I aimed kind of straight for this, whatever this airport is, Sugarland, and then while I was between this made-up waypoint and Sugarland, I thought, oh, criminy, that's a controlled airport. Now I have to do radio thing that I had wanted to avoid, but well, I could wrap around to the south, or, well, all right, I'll just call them up. So it worked out. I called them up and said I'm at whatever I was at the time, probably just under 2,000, and transitioning east to west, and they gave me a transition. So finally, I get out to here where I'm rubber banding now, and I'm free of the Bravo, and thank goodness I can get more altitude, give myself more choices, and again, as I said, the winds aloft were negligible pretty much the whole time. So normally when you climb and you're westbound, you're getting into stronger headwinds, but that, maybe 15 knots instead of 10. It really wasn't worth staying low. So I was up at 8,500 feet for the trip to Fredericksburg for that first leg. So there we are at Fredericksburg. So all low terrain, 8,500 feet is plenty. Pass south of Austin, start my descent, bingo, land and spend the night at Fredericksburg. Okay, so that's the getting out of Houston part. Your choice may have been different. That's totally fine. That's just what I did under those circumstances and some of the reasons why. Odessa was interesting only in the fact that I kept calling it Odessa, but I heard people on Unicom 123.0 saying a word I couldn't quite understand, but it was sort of like Schleiermeyer, but I wasn't sure. And I got closer and closer, and I keep hearing Schleiermacher, and I'm trying to figure out what runway people are using. Look at all these runways. They have 2 and 20, 11 and 29, 1634. And they're talking about Schleiermacher, and I'm going to Odessa. Finally, I zoomed in enough on ForeFlight, and guess what? It's Odessa Schleiermacher Field. And you never know. Like in some airports, that's called by the city, and in some airports it's called by the airport name. So I finally figured out that they were at the airport I was going to. So I started figuring out how to say Schleiermacher. All right, truth or consequences. So they're right there in the middle, TCS, show low, and over here it was a beautiful day, 4 legs, and got me here at maybe 5 or 6 in the evening. I had planned to do this little short hop up to Pahrump the same evening, but by the time I went from Sholo to, I see your questions and comments, thank you, to, let me look at the question real quick. Come on, go away. To grab a bite to eat and back, the sun was setting, so I took off thinking I might do it like with the sun waning. And as soon as I was up and in the pattern, I thought, there's no way. I don't want to be landing there at night and then try to figure out how to get to a motel that late. It's like, the heck with it. So I just did a pattern and plopped back down there. So so the next day I did the short trip over here to Pahrump. And now, so was I on flight following? So it was a question somebody asked. I was on, I occasionally, actually, all of the additional legs, I filed flight plans and was on flight following. And then once I had enough confidence that my radio and everything was good enough, I got lazy about the flight plans, but for the reasons we discussed. If you're on flight following, you will be searched for and found more quickly and more accurately than on a flight plan. So it's possible that if you're on flight following, that kind of obviates the need for a flight plan. I'm not recommending for you student pilots, file flight plans, deal with it, learn how to do all that. But for the entire trip, for every minute that I had radio and transponder coverage, I was on flight following every single minute that I could talk to somebody. All right, so crossing the Rockies, that was like the biggest part, and I was hoping to spend 15 minutes on it, but I may just have to do another seminar. So here we are at Bishop. So actually, because of this MOA, I thought, well, it's legal to fly into an MOA even when it's active, but I thought, well, let me just give them some room. So I just kind of snuck up over here and added, a minute to my flight or something like that. And but I didn't have to do that. So then here I am at Bishop, and I need to get across this mess. So I do have that somewhere. Give me a second to find it. Is this the one with, nope. No. Hold on there. Here, actually, I do it like this. KEFD. Search for it that way. I'm looking for the one where I have every, here it is. Oh, good. All right, so send to map. All right, so here's where I have the details of my Rockies crossing. All right, so remember I spent the night way down here in Bullhead City, Sun Valley. So, and that's when I was thinking about how am I going to get west of the actually Sierra Nevadas. So I could have come down south. So let me pull this over. I could have gone over yonder, but there are a bunch of restricted areas right here, pretty much at all altitudes. And I called flight service to say, ask what's the schedule on those restricted areas, and I got an interesting answer. Oh, they're always hot. Oh, okay, so now if I want to take the southern route, I got to go way down south here, all the way over there. And I thought, okay, I can do that. It'll add 200 miles to the trip. That's fine. And what else could I do that might obviate the need for that? So I'm looking very closely along the whole Sierra Nevadas, and everything is big. It was 11, 12, 13,000 foot stuff. I thought, you know what? If there's a pass, if there's a road, they're going to cut a road through. So I said that backwards. If there's a road, it's going to go through a pass, and it's going to be at least for that part of the portion of the mountains. There's going to be some lower terrain, and if it's like low enough, long enough, maybe I can do that. So I found this thing here called Sonora Pass, and let's I'm a little bit covered up with this stuff here, but here's an 11,459 foot peak just to the north, 11.5 over here to the south. Through the pass itself, where this brown coloring is, and the kind of this little northwest leg, it says 10,000. I'm like, okay, I've been at 8,500 with this plane. I've already been at, I think, 12.5 for that, getting into Bishop, the previous leg. Or I hadn't, because I was planning this when I was down in Arizona. I'm sorry. But anyway, I know this plane just wants to climb. I can get any altitude I want, subject to oxygen limitations. So I thought, okay, this I like. What are the oxygen limitations? Well, guess what? They're 12, 5, 14, and 15. So 12,500 and above, up to 14, you get 30 minutes, assuming you don't get personal altitude issues, hypoxia at those altitudes. And I've done enough flying in recent years at those kinds of altitudes, and I know I feel fine. If on that particular day I didn't, guess what? There's lower terrain behind me. So I would need to be at 14 on the way up to this landmark here, this MCMW, whatever this whole thing is here, some heliport. And I'd be at 14 or above for a while. And I just monitor myself and say, do I feel okay? Do I feel okay? Am I getting euphoric? Am I getting, losing concentration? And if so, turn around, find another route. Very simple. So the whole time I left myself an out. And in this case, the out was, what if I start feeling hypoxic? So monitored, I had been hypoxic years and years ago. I know what those symptoms were at the time. So I'm monitoring myself constantly when I'm at these altitudes. And I felt good the whole time. So what I did was I picked this airport as a waypoint, easily visible, especially because it's at the bottom of a lake. And then these are all basically GPS waypoints, because you'll never see this little helipad. I don't even know what that is. So I'm carefully following the GPS lines. And so I go to this waypoint where the heliport is, go southwest to just below Sonora Pass, go northwest to that other waypoint, and then straight west. And now I'm on the downhill side again. So I was at 14,000, which is where you do need alcohol, altitude. Maybe I'm hypoxic now. I'm down here at sea level. Oxygen from minute zero, but read the reg carefully. It says for cabin pressure altitudes, not indicated altitude, not actual altitude, pressure altitudes. And they mean what they say. So I was in a high pressure system basically the whole time. My altimeter settings were always above 3000. I think up here I was at 301 something or 302 something. When the pressure is higher than standard, your pressure altitude is lower than indicated. Talk to your instructor or look it up or punch it into a pressure altitude calculator if you want. Just make the pretend the altimeter setting is, let's say, 3010. plug in 12,500 feet MSL indicated altitude, you'll find out you're only at about 12,300 feet pressure altitude. Well, you can stay there forever. There's no 30-minute restriction. And if you plug in 14,000 feet, I know it's an IFR altitude, but the hemispheric altitude rule only comes into play when you're above 3,000 AGL. Well, here's terrain at 11,000 kind of surrounding me. I'm pretty sure 3,000 above that is 14.5, and I'm only at 14. So depending how strict FAA would ever want to be, are they going to say, yeah, but you were over a 10,000 foot pass and you were at 14,000 feet, that's more than 3,000, and yada, yada. I'm like, I just got to do what I feel is safe. I think it's as legal as can be because the overall terrain is 11 or more. I just happened to find a little pass here that's a little bit lower, and I'm going with safety, which means higher is better. So at 14,000 feet, I was basically still in the 30 minutes allotted time above 12.5 pressure altitude. So I looked at my clock and wrote down what time it was, wrote down what time 30 minutes later would be, and made a mental note that by that time I need to be down below 12.5 pressure altitude. So I mean, I only needed 15 or 20 minutes at 14,000 to get through this whole thing here. And so keeping in mind what I said earlier, always leave yourself an out. If I had any engine trouble leading up to the pass, I make a 180 in either direction and come back and just glide the lower terrain down, 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 down. If I can make it back to Bryant, great. If not, I have this road that goes from Bryant to the helipad, and I can land on or next to the road. So there's my out. If anything happens before the pass, if I'm at or beyond the pass, I'm going to probably glide straight ahead and just keep going down here towards these camps or on this road that's just to the left of me and land on the road or next to the road. So I'm seeing all my criteria are being met in terms of having a place to go if I need to, if I have engine trouble, and giving myself time at the altitude I'm going to go through the pass to be sure I can monitor myself for hypoxia. Goodness gracious, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry that's all we have time for. I wanted to get those two main points in, which is getting out of Bravo infested airspace and getting through high terrain like that. So I'm going to type my direct email address into chat. If it'll, it kind of won't even let me type. Come on now. phmand@gmail. Why won't you let me finish typing? Why won't you show me my cursor? Computers. All right, don't go away. I have a plan. I have a plan. I need a piece of paper. Don't go away. phmand@gmail. phmand. Okay, like that. phmand@gmail.com. I love questions, comments. Wow, thank you. Give me a few days to get wings credit to you because there's 60 or 68 of you at this point. Wow, thank you for attending. Hope this was worthwhile. In about 20 minutes, I'll start my other seminar webinar, which is Ask a CFI. I'm going to start by reviewing some of the things that are on the private pilot ACS, Airman Certification Standards. So it's basically for student pilots in this case, but if you want to jump in on it as well, you're very welcome to do so. So I don't think there was anything else I had on the PowerPoint's not going to want to work anyway, obviously. So we'll just leave it at that. And I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. So stay safe, stay away from viruses, fly safely, and we'll see you either later today or at another time. phmand@gmail. The code for the next one, oh, here's my email. The code, that's a darn good question. The code for the next one is, standby, meetings, ask a CFI. Is that it? Ask a C. 635. Somebody, whoever asked what's the code, please type this in the chat box. 635 643 264. I will say again, 635 643 264. Okay, so I need someone to type that in the chat box, please. There we go. 6356. Whoops. I think that's what I said, right? No, I lost it. Two people typed it. 635 643 264. Okay, so when I end this, that's going to disappear. So write it down or copy paste and grab that, and we'll see you 10:30 Pacific time, 20 minutes from now. So thank you. We'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.